Could the Dallas Cowboys draft another stud on the offensive line in round one? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. On today's show, we're going to be breaking down some interior offensive line prospects that the Cowboys could very well draft at pick number 24. We're going to be discussing Graham Barton from Duke, Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, and then, of course, Jordan Morgan from Arizona, a pet cat of mine. But let's start with Graham Barton, Landon, because he is somebody who has been routinely mocked to the Cowboys in the first round for the last several months. What did you see when you turned on the tape?
Well, I mean, I have to think that part of the reason is that he keeps getting mocked to the Cowboys is that the Cowboys have several holes in their offensive line, and Graham Barton can potentially play all of them. So it just makes sense that no matter who they're targeting, what position, tackle or center, Barton has played both of them, so that he could definitely potentially fill that goal, that hole. Barton to me is interesting. And in fact, frankly, all these guys in this kind of bottom of the first round offensive line class are kind of very fascinating to me because some of them are very similar and some of them are kind of weird mixes of each other. To me, Barton, he played left tackle at Duke, his senior year, but he definitely had experience playing all over, right?
He played center in 2020 for Duke.
Yeah. And so that's, I think, at this point, when we're all talking about the player, we're projecting him as a center, as a guard, potentially. And I think, a lot of it has to do with the fact the physical specimen that he is, right? Like you look at the way he was able to play left tackle in college and had no problems, but he has shorter arms. They're under 33 inches. His physicality, I think, is going to play better inside. Some of these guys, and I think we'll go over this a little bit more when we talk about Fontenot as well, and whenever we cover him. Some of these guys, like, I think that they could play tackle, right? If they were put there and were asked to play. But I think that some of them just physically match up better as guards, right? Like, whereas they are maybe slightly undersized, because of lengthwise tackles, they are perfectly sized for guard. And I think Barton kind of falls into this category a little bit there. He has great grips. He latches on and doesn't let go. In pass protection, he can get a little too high sometimes. But when he drops his butt and he gets his leverage low, he's really hard to move. He kind of does that Zach Martin kind of back arch thing, and then just sets his feet and then and points his toes out, and he just basically sits down and stops the bull rush. You see that kind of power. I think part of the issue is that he is going to get he's going to have to get away with more holding calls, because he holds a lot. And I think that part of that is because he has such great grip strength that's like a key aspect of his game. So he's going to need to be a little bit more savvy at times about where he's holding and kind of where he's gripping folks, because there were times when it felt like his hands were getting outside of the frame of the person he's trying to block. I put a note because of when I did these notes, is that I will definitely need to circle back on this report after seeing him snap the ball and move in Mobile. Yep. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, because of the injury. So I still think that there's some more. I still would love to see more snaps of him snapping the football and playing center than what I've seen so far, just to kind of before we project him there as a professional there starting in the first round pick. As a mentality guy, he's a finisher. I love watching him toss dudes. He can play a little bit out of control at times. He's on the ground a little bit more than I prefer. Again, a lot like no, that's different than Fontenot. But I with Fontenot, I saw that situation where Fontenot has incredible balance, but every single time that he's on the ground, it's because he's being too aggressive and he's attacking too hard. He just falls over it. His lack of length is a real problem at times at tape, which again,
it's a tackle issue. I just don't know how big of a deal it is at guard and center.
Yeah, it's not going to be. That's what I was going to get at, is that you can see on tape why there is talk about moving him inside. Like, he actually does. Some of these other guys, they don't have length, but it's fine that you don't see the issue on tape, but you still want to move him inside just in case. Barton, you see it. Like, there are times when he plays like Verse, I think was the name of the kid, the Florida State kid, where it showed up, right? Like, and that's when you see, okay, he probably needs to make a move inside, which is fine because I think his game kind of matches that. Where does he win? He's a tenacious grabber who is going to bury you into the ground. Unanswered questions. Again, I'd like to see more tape of him playing center before I projected him there. But I think that he has all the physical tools. He clearly has the mentality to play the position. Stupid people don't make it into Duke. So I think if you can figure out how to get into Duke, you probably figure out blocking schemes and how to make the correct calls. So I like Barton a lot. I think he's an incredibly versatile player. He's a guy that you can draft, and really you could play him at any of the 5 spots if you really, really needed him to, and he would be good. I view him as a Skoronski type player a little bit. So I liked him a lot.
So I don't want to spoil the rest of the show, but of the 3 offensive linemen that we're going to talk about, this is my favorite for the Cowboys because of the position flex. And I think it's pretty unlikely that he's going to be a tackle in the NFL. I think he's going to be a guard, center guard. But that's okay for me. That's fine. We have also seen a study that, like, of the 75% of the interior offensive linemen that end up making a Pro Bowl, almost all of those guys were tackles at the college level, and you kick inside the guard. So the Cowboys have had success with this transition of, hey, we're going to take a college tackle, move him inside the guard. I mean, Zach Martin and Tyler Smith are pretty darn good examples there.
Mm-hmm. And not the only ones, though.
Not the only ones. No.
Yeah.
I think the reason I like him the best, other than the versatility, and you mentioned it, he's got a mean streak that I think the Cowboys are missing a little bit on the offensive line. There's a toughness and a grittiness to him that I really, really admire.
Yeah.
And I think the idea of adding him to an offensive line with Tyler Smith, with Zach Martin, with Terrence Steele, it's really appealing to me. I think he's a really good prospect. I don't know where he would start right away for the Cowboys. I think probably ideally center, but not necessarily. Maybe you get to camp and you find out, hey, he's a really good left guard. Let's put him at left guard. Let's have Tyler Smith play left tackle, and we'll figure out center because he's just too good to not play guard.
Yeah, and I think he is. That is the appeal here, is that a guy like this, you draft him, and then you can kind of figure out what your combination of best 5 is, because you could play him at center, you could play him at left guard. I mean, really, you could try him at tackle, but I just don't think it's his best spot. But and I think in the future, if Zach Martin moves on, retires at some point, he's just another piece to solve that kind of trio inside. So I mean, I think again, the play mentality, the grip strength, like that's stuff that's going to translate right away in the NFL. Anything else I think is very easily learned. And I think, the issues you would have, I think if you drafted Barton, would be how quickly can he get up to speed to center. But I don't think that would be a problem.
I also love that he's got like 2,600 career snaps coming out of Duke. Like
he got a ton of experience.
Like, he got a ton of experience. Like that it does matter to me a little bit. I just don't have to worry so much when you get a guy that has that many snaps. And I even look at somebody like TJ Bass, who the Cowboys signed last year as an undrafted free agent. Like, he played a bunch in the Pac-12, comes in as an undrafted rookie free agent, and doesn't kill you. Like, I do think the experience is something that does matter quite a bit with some of these offensive line prospects.
Yeah, absolutely. You've seen more. You just, it's always better to have more experience before you come into the NFL and you get a whole new kind of experience, right? It just, I think, helps with the learning curve. So for Barton, yeah, I think having all those snaps is definitely going to be a benefit to him.
Now, one player that doesn't have that long list of experience is Jackson Powers Johnson, who a lot of people have as the number one interior offensive lineman in this class. Let's discuss his fit with the Cowboys next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fastest and the easiest way to buy tickets for all of the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront so you know that you're getting a great deal before you check out. Buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendars for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern for the best MLB season preview coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Be the first to get local insights from the MLB local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, Lena, let's talk about Jackson Powers Johnson, who has been somebody that we've been eyeing for several months now. I know you got a chance to go back and look at the tape. What did you see when you saw it?
Yeah, I mean, this is my pet cat, to be clear. Like, I love this guy. Big body for a center. I mean, you just don't see centers that are 320 pounds. I started this report before the combine, and my note at the top was big body for a center, listed at 320, but I'm going to need to confirm that at the combine. Well, guess what? He came into the combine at 328. So, yeah, like big boy playing inside. He's very top heavy, but very leggy player with the kind of a shorter torso, has a little bit of room to fill out the lower body if he needs to. Plays with a very wide base. So this is one of the first things you notice with him. Is you don't see a bunch of centers that have as wide a base as he does. It just takes up a huge chunk of that front three, right? He is just a physical player. He drives his feet through contact. He's strong in pass pro. He can bow his back with his feet planted to completely cut down any kind of bull rush. He's a heady player, despite not having played the position very well. You can tell that he knows exactly what he's doing. I mean, he's another guy that has played kind of all over, right? He played at right tackle. He played at guard. I think he even played left tackle at his freshman year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I've got the breakdown here. So it's 914 snaps at center, 28 at left guard, 446 snaps at right guard, and then a few snaps at right tackle.
Yes, left guard, not left tackle. Sorry, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, clearly a lot of experience kind of playing all over and at both guard spots. He's great at securing blocks at the line of scrimmage and then quickly getting into his path on the second level. Like, he's very good at securing guys at the first level on double teams and then getting off. Has a really good feel for passing off players and double teams. He keeps his eyes upfield while feeling the guard take over the block and then makes his way up there. He can have inconsistent pad level at times. He can play a little bit high. He could sort of end up kind of just trying to fight the guys, which is a problem with offensive linemen where they just become brawlers as opposed to like technicians who need to kind of keep their pad level low and be aware. Just a ton of 2-for-1 blocks on the tape in run game, just where he's just bossing some guy at the line of scrimmage and then getting to the second level and then bossing some guy at the second level too. It's really fun to watch. Knows how to keep his hands in tight when holding. So, again, a little bit better than Barton. He's good at kind of hiding that holding a little bit better. He's tough. He's cocky, but he's not a huge finisher in the sense that you would think he would. Barton is definitely more of a finisher than him, and he doesn't punish jumpers the way you'd like to see him. But having said that, like, he has almost superhuman ability to recover. Like I that's what I love the most about him, is that he is a big bodied center who, if he loses because of a mistake early in the snap, he finds a way with his athleticism to get his body back into position, and to fix the situation and to recover even when he loses in a snap early. That's rare. You just don't see that at the center position, especially for a guy that doesn't have a ton of snaps. I think he hung the moon. Honestly, you just don't see a bunch of. You may see centers that are 320 pounds plus. You may see centers who are 320 pounds plus that move like this guy. You might, but you're not going to see 320-pound centers that have tons of upside like this guy has, because he's only played a year at center, and on top of that has like a almost preternatural instinct to like on how to recover. Like he understands the kind of nuance of offensive line and like how to just win at all costs in the snap, as well as almost anybody I've studied. I'm a huge fan. I'm really hoping the Cowboys end up getting him at 24, to be honest.
Yeah, so I agree with everything you said. I just have a couple questions for you. I thought he was a better pass blocker than a run blocker. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of that is that offense, right?
It might be. Well, I guess I not worried. That's the wrong word. I'm not so sure he would fit like a wide zone rushing attack super well. Like I have some concerns about like when he has to get to the second level and get to linebackers. Like he's just not to say he's not athletic, but I don't know like if he can quickly try to change direction to get to a linebacker. I think he is so much better though in pass protection than some of these other guys that like if you just need him to anchor down against like a defensive tackle, I've got no issues with him doing that at all.
I think he may not be as athletic and agile as some of the guys on the second level. I think I agree with that, but I think that he makes up for that because he's so good at getting out of the double team, of securing the double team at the first level.
Yes.
That he has more time and he's at the second level faster than a lot of centers because he did the first job so well and so quickly. So I definitely see what you're saying on tape. I think he makes up for it with technique up front when he's having to pass off double teams. But
I want to give you some stats really quickly from Pro Football Focus. These are their stable metrics. These are from the last 2 years from Jackson Powers Johnson. 97th percentile pass block grade, 94th percentile pass block grade on true pass sets, 96th percentile pass block grade with no play action, 97th percentile grade on pass block grade on 5 to 7 step concepts. He is a very, very good pass blocker. And you see that on tape. You saw it at the Senior Bowl. Like once he gets a hold of you, it's kind of over, which just doesn't happen for a lot of centers. So I do have a lot of confidence that he could come right in and be an upgrade for the Cowboys. Now, there are some whispers about some injury stuff. Didn't test at the combine, didn't test at the pro day, had to leave the Senior Bowl a couple days early because of a back injury. It's something to at least note because he doesn't have a lot of experience compared to like Barton. I think he has 1,200 career snaps where Barton has double that. There's some little concerns, but as a talent, I think he fits really well for the Cowboys.
Yeah, he's just as natural a talent at center as I've seen in a while. I think just he has a very rare kind of combination of power and quickness while being a center, which again is pretty rare. That is, I think, very unique and could be, I think center can be a position that if you have an average center, there's not a lot of value added. If you've got a very bad center, you really notice it. When you have a very good center, you really notice it. So that's why I'm higher on drafting a guy like this, because I think, I don't know that Biotish moved the needle a ton while he was here, but I know that Frederick moved the needle a lot while he was here. So I'm looking to get that kind of impact long term at my pivot position.
Last thing on JPJ before we move on. Do you think he could be a guard in the NFL, or do you think he's really more of a center only?
No, he could play guard without a problem. I think he's got the power, the speed, all that all the ability that you require at guard, he's got there at spades. I mean, I think what you worry about when that transition from center to guard is he stout enough? Is he big enough? Certainly not a problem for JPJ.
All right, let's talk about Jordan Morgan, who is one of the more fascinating back half of round one offensive line prospects. Let's talk about how he would fit with the Cowboys next. This episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar that you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar that you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold from the first year from the date of your first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC is a registered broker-dealer. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We are breaking down some round one prospects for the Cowboys on the interior offensive line. Having said that, I want to talk about Jordan Morgan, who is a tackle from Arizona, who I think a lot of people are projecting to guard in the NFL.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about him quite a bit, but what were your thoughts when you watched the tape?
Yeah, again, I mean, another guy I really liked, kind of an unusual body type that we likely would transition into guard, like you just talked about. He's 6'5", 311. He's got a little bit under 33-inch arms, but he's got very big hands. He's got 11-inch hands.
Mm-hmm.
He's slightly undersized, like I said, with arm-wise, but he has enormous hands. He's a very easy mover, right? He glides on his feet. He remains in a balanced stance throughout the snap. Like, he's very good about body posture and about keeping his body kind of lined up so that he's not getting out over his skis. This is something that I talk about a lot with guys that have short arms, right? Is that you tend to see them bend at the waist a lot, and kind of, because they have shorter arms, they become impatient and they worry about making first contact with the defender so they don't lose because of bull rushes or hands in their chest. So what you see a lot of shorter armed guys do is bend at the waist, try to reach guys, and then they leave themselves susceptible to swim moves and all kinds of different stuff because you're putting yourself out of balance. That is not Morgan's issue. Morgan does have the kind of typical shorter arms than normal, but if anything, he is almost patient to a fault with his punch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he kind of goes the other way. Like, he will punch late, and the result is if they get their hands into him, he would prefer to punch late and stay in a balanced stance. But the result is that sometimes guys get their hands into him, and then the real issue I've seen with Jordan Morgan on tape at times is that he spends too much time on blocking on one foot. And that's because what happens is that guys get inside to his chest, they lift him up, and he's on one foot, being lifted off the ground, still trying to block a guy, but you're not really doing anything more than just being in the way. And frankly, all it takes is a nice little shove, and then you're on your feet. So Morgan plays with incredibly balanced 95% of the time, and he plays with good technique, and his punch timing is good, except for that 5% or whatever it is of time when he misses or the guy gets his hands on him, and then he's very susceptible to bull rushes, to hands in his chest, to being lifted off the ground because he's not, he's 6'5" and 311. It's like he's not a big guy, right?
No,
it's spread out, so it's not like a lot of low center of gravity stuff. He can be thrown off if guys get into positions of power, right? I think power is going to be a power in the run game will be an issue with him, depending on what you're trying to do, right? Like, if he's not going to be displacing a bunch of
he's
NFL
not a people
defensive
mover.
linemen. What'd you say?
He's not really a people mover.
Yeah, he's not a people mover. Yeah, I agree. I think I think in a zone system, he is going to thrive. Like because
Oh my
he
gosh,
is
yeah.
a good mover. Like I said, he's very agile, getting on the second level and has the athletic ability to operate there and improvise if he needs to hit a target if someone's trying to get around him. Mirrors well, has excellent change of direction. He really gets into trouble when his feet stop moving in pass protection. If his feet are still chopping, he can mirror with guys. He can keep up with most of the more athletic guys that you see. But like I think it was Trice that we saw him against
Braylon Trice from
Washington.
Washington. Yep.
There were times when he was facing Trice that everything looked great. He looked just as athletic. He was mirroring him. He was getting where he needed to go. But there were times when Trice made him stop his feet. Like he kicked out of the kick slide. Trice made a move. It caused him to stop his feet, and then suddenly Trice gets around him really quickly. So I think
it's funny because like Trice gave him problems, but Latu from UCLA,
yeah,
nothing, absolutely nothing. And they got the numbers right here: 0 wins for Latu in his career going up against Jordan Morgan. So like, it's funny that Trice is the one that gave him some issues.
Yeah, it's almost it's almost like he didn't like he got real big up for Latu, but didn't expect Trice to be as much of a problem. And again, Trice beat him in ways that I didn't expect. When you're watching it and you watch Morgan get beat around the edge, it's surprising, right? Because you just like you've seen how athletic he is. He doesn't have a problem getting out of his stance or kick sliding or anything, but it's like he gets out and then he stops his feet because he's surprised or whatever. And then suddenly Bryce like does a quick move and he's back outside and now he's beating him. So yeah, I think, a move inside, especially in a zone heavy blocking system, I think is really going to be a great fit for Jordan Morgan. I think he can play tackle. I think more so than Barton for sure. I just think that it would have to be in a zone system because he is a little bit undersized. He's not a guy that's going to be digging out 320-pound defensive tackles in a power run game system. So I think he has a lot of ability. He has a lot of athletic upside, but I also think that he is going to be a better player in the correct fit. The distance between where he goes is going to make a difference. The distance between him being in a place with a good fit versus him being in a place where that might not be a good fit for him, the difference of the player that you're going to get is going to be pretty wide, I think.
Just a couple things I wanted to add in here. We were talking about the athleticism, and I know I've mentioned this to you before. So I looked this morning. His official 10-yard split was 1.69. In the history of the NFL Combine, there have been 2 offensive linemen that have run a sub 1.7 10-yard split over 310 pounds. It's Greg Robinson from your school, Auburn. And then it's Kyle Long, who was the Pro Bowl guard for the Bears, who I actually think is a very good comp for Jordan Morgan. Kyle Long, coming out of Oregon, was a left tackle. He was a 6'6", 310-pound left tackle with short arms, comes into the NFL, is an awesome guard in the right scheme. Now, he had to retire early because of some injuries, but I think we know that the Cowboys really liked Matthew Bergeron last year, and they were considering drafting Bergeron over Mozzie Smith. Bergeron is another guy that reminded me with Jordan Morgan a little bit. I could see the Cowboys being really interested in somebody like Jordan Morgan here.
Yeah, and to me, I was surprised when Bergeron ended up playing guard. I just didn't see that necessarily, but it obviously ended up being pretty decent. I think Morgan, to me, seems like a very much more natural fit as a guard, just because of his, again, in a zone scheme, because of his ability to kind of secure things and then get to the second level, his agility, his ability to move.
Yeah,
I think all those lend to, and then he has the power to kind of to sit down and squat if needs to, and get underneath guys in the pass protection. So he's not going to be like he's going to be stout up front in pass protection. He's just not, he's just not a guy that you're going to want to dig out a defensive tackle.
No, it's not. No,
physically move people off the line. it's more of a shielding. Let's see him do a backside cutoff. I could see him doing that kind of thing all day long.
Should mention that we got word that the Cowboys had a private workout with Jordan Morgan last week. I believe the 49ers and the Ravens were part of that private workout, which doesn't surprise me at all, especially the 49ers, because I think he's like the absolute perfect wide zone guard. Like he would thrive in that scheme. So really quickly before we go, how would you rank these 3 offensive linemen in order of the ones you want Dallas to draft?
Well, this is where I think you and I are different. I probably would rank Barton third. Because I listen. I think there's some uncertainty about where the offense is going scheme wise as far as pass blocking. I think if they leaned into a wide zone system, I would prefer Morgan over Barton. If there's going to be more of a mixture, I think that would be enough of a difference for Barton to be number 2 in this list, because I think he's more versatile. He can play more schemes, that sort of thing. But I think Morgan playing in his own scheme, it puts him up 2.
JPJ, Morgan, Barton. I am Barton, JPJ, Morgan. Interesting. So on tomorrow's show, every day, so we're going to be talking about some of the offensive tackles that could potentially be options for the Cowboys, including Tyler Guyton, Fontenot from Washington, and then Amarius Mims, who is one of the most interesting prospects in this entire class. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Go follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.